Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you all are enjoying the entertainment. I have two lovely, lovely ladies who have joined me. You're watching Dash Radio, FTP Radio, Fight the Power. We are honoring Breonna Taylor, along with all of the other many women who unfortunately lost their lives to law enforcement and police brutality. So I'm going to jump right in. I have two lovely ladies, Miss Bianca and Jasmine, who are joining me. More Black girl magic, you guys, more Black girl magic.
Yes, hello. Hello,
So
everyone.
we have Miss Bianca Banks. She's LA native, businesswoman, philanthropist, community advocate, socialite. The list goes on and on. She had her entertainment premiere on Bravo's Invite Only Cabo. I'm gonna have to hear about that after the show. I'm interested. Alongside celebrity hairstylist Larry Sims, and then we also have Jasmine Shannon. Welcome, guys. She's a former NBA dancer for Portland Trailblazers, and she owns and operates a web design and social media consulting firm. You have two powerful women here, so welcome, you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And we're just so grateful for having us, and we're happy to be a part of this. It's just been a beautiful afternoon. So thank you.
No,
Definitely.
thank you for taking time to join to talk about something that's so very important. Prior to even Black Lives Matter movement, but even more so important now for us to start having these conversations on a more regular basis. Very important. So you all got to watch the first segment. I got to talk to a lawyer, Demetria Graves, and it was very good. We talked a little bit about how police brutality impacts the family because she's a family lawyer. And so she gave some great information. And then reflecting after that, I was thinking of, I couldn't, she said fear, and it resonated so much with me in terms of what all of this brings up, that fear. And I made a note here. I was like, when you operate from a place of fear, we make survival-based decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And when we make survival-based decisions, those aren't always beneficial or healthy long term, because survival is supposed to be in the moment. Survival is supposed to be temporary. You get through, that's when you jump in front of the car to save your child, those things. But what do we do when survival is an everyday, all day thing? What does that do to the mind? What does it do to the body? What does it do to how you operate? And I think it's important to bring awareness to that. And that's kind of what we're talking about here today. So I'm interested, and I asked the last guest this, with the Black Lives Matter movement and so much attention being brought, so many videos out on social media, you're bombarded with it. Emotionally, where are you guys with all this, with everything that's going on, with what you've been seeing?
I mean, I feel like it's just, I mean, it's almost well, we're definitely living in history, right? I mean, we've never seen anything like this happen, meaning that this is a global movement. It's not just conducive to the United States. This is, we're seeing, London, Berlin, Germany. I mean, so many people that are, holding arms and really standing up for this, injustice. And I think that it's really, I mean, it's so beautiful to have a synonymous feeling. And I think it's really important for Jasmine, who's my daughter, to also witness this, because we've never seen anything like this, and I don't know if it's because we've, kind of like everybody's been locked in. We've been in this pandemic. And so, is it because everybody's paying attention? Are we able to really focus on these injustices? But unfortunately, we've always been going through this, right? It's like, this is not the first time. This is not the first case. There's so many. And I mean, we can even go back to, when my parents were, in their era, they were born in the 30s. You can imagine the amount of injustice that they experienced. I think that that definitely, for them to be able to raise us, to basically have an equal tone to everyone and to not have prejudices, it just speaks volumes, for people that were just treated, so poorly, But I also think that their way of responding to the inequality was through education, through, you like, that's the one thing, that could not be taken from us. And then when you have your education, then you obtain your success, and then you can leave your legacy. So I think that was the way that I was raised.
Right.
And then to raise Jasmine that way, and she can speak about that. But I do think it's just so important with what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you guys, before I have to say this because right before the show, I was like, so they also have a show on Dash Radio called MND. And I was like, oh, you guys, what does MND stand for? They said mother and daughter. Look at them. Please look at them. They said mother and daughter. Okay. That
Yeah.
melanin is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, great.
No. You heard right, because she caught me off guard too. So you heard right when Bianca said my daughter Jasmine. Go ahead, Jasmine. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yes, MND is something that we created as a mother and daughter brand to be able to do things collaboratively without, always using our names. We wanted it to kind of be something that represents a spectrum of things that we do together. But like piggybacking off of what my mom was saying, I think awareness is major. I think that that's what I'm learning through what is going on. It's really deep for me because I feel like what my mom is saying, like this has been an occurrence, and to see how, this world deals with it now versus to, all of the countless amount of times that it happened since, my grandparents have been experiencing it, like my mom was saying. It's honestly life changing and breathtaking to just understand how different and how many different opinions and mindsets there are when it comes to dealing with things, like these tragedies. So I think it's been really deep for me. I've been having so many conversations with my fellow Black sisters and brothers, and it's honestly been, for a young adult, like I'm disappointed that it had to happen the way that it's happened, for it to be what it, all of these beautiful conversations are happening all over the world. And I'm frustrated because it took, something so tragic and so public and so, explicit like that to happen multiple times, for people to understand. And so I think that, it's a blessing in disguise. And,
Definitely. So
yeah.
many good points. And previously we brushed on just how it impacts the family, leaving the providers of the family feeling demasculated, helpless, leaving other people in the family feeling helpless, and how this trauma has been passed down. So you said education, and I can think, even my parents are like, I realized it wasn't until I got to college and had other conversations that I realized that college just wasn't, I never knew it was an option. Like it just wasn't an option. Like, I was like, oh, you got to
phase.
wasn't gonna go. Like I was like, oh, that's how embedded. So talking about how things are passed down from generation to generation to generation, but trauma is also passed down from generation to generation. So we talked a lot about how it's impacted families in terms of arguments, communication, identifying feelings, that anxiety, unhealthy relationships. So I want to shift gears here since we've addressed the family and talk about how you all feel racial trauma impacts women of color. What are your thoughts on that?
It's like, so first of all, being a woman, you're already, like you're already in your own bubble. And then you're, obviously when you're a Black woman, then it's a double, it's like a double bubble, right? and it's, and I guess I'm saying bubble to say that, you kind of have to like break through so many different barriers just to be heard, and one thing that we touched on recently, Jasmine and I, was that that we also need to start supporting one another, within our own community. That that I've, have certain people around me, or have had certain people around me that I would consider to be, my sisters, but then it's like we're always the first ones to tear each other down too, and so I feel like racial or experiencing racism can also be within our own community as well, you know? And so
Mhm.
I think that there needs to be a conversation that needs to be had, not only with other, you know, brothers and sisters of all ethnicities, but, you know, I really also feel like it has to start with us. And I do feel like there needs to be a change, and we need to be supportive, and, you know, and it's like, and I don't, you know, it's like you see that a lot. Like it's so much easier for us to just, you know, be catty or kind of vicious towards one another. And I think that um that other communities, you know, see that, and other, you know, groups, and then they kind of like, you know, in many ways fuel that. And I just wish that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I like there needs to be so many different conversations that come from just what we're witnessing right now. And I think that's why I'm so moved today, because it's just been a beautiful afternoon, and it's really good to see, you know, other, and to hear other experiences of women, you know.
Yes. And with that being said, I'm gonna speak from a psychological perspective, and would love to hear you all's thoughts on this as well, just in terms of when we talk about trauma being passed down from generation to generation, and the impact is specifically in women of color. And you brought up a point that I was going to get to, so this is perfect, about the competition factor, right, and the colorism within our communities. And if I were to, I mean, our communities have been impacted in many ways, but I were to pull some of the things, insecurity. I think it leaves that underlying not feeling good enough, unworthy, that comes with being Black, and how it transitioned from generation to generation, specifically in women of color. I do believe there, in Black women, there is this insecurity that's much deeper than I don't like you because your hair long, or I don't like you because, it's much deeper than that. It goes back to our worth, and that insecurity and that colorism that within our own communities happen, where lighter is prettier, if you look more exotic, those type things, that was reinforced by a lot of, I mean, I think it's gotten better now as far as the music industry and television, but it's definitely something that I can remember growing up and thinking of videos, and it's all long hair, you know, the brighter you are, the prettier you are, and things of that nature, which in our community. So when we talk about racism, we have low self-esteem. We have, when we talk about the trauma, love, you know, a lot of Black women think love, this unhealthy experience of love, means you just stay there and you deal with no matter what, even if it's unhealthy, and staying through it equals love. If we talk about trauma being passed down, seeking to repair our hurts in relationships, seeking men or whomever, whatever your preference is, to repair emotional wounds, whether it's issues with fathers, our parents being absent or abandonment, seeking those in relationships. And before, I'm gonna go into this one, but also just sexuality, using our body being looked at as a symbol. And that could be a whole different show that we could all talk about on another day. Just, you know, because you can go way back to slavery days, and you think about Black women being raped by slave masters and then
Mm-hmm.
pregnant, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
these biracial babies where the slave master wasn't claiming them, and they're left to leave the
Right.
baby, raising the baby alone by themselves, fatherless. And trauma is genetically passed down in our DNA as well. There's research that proves that. So now it looks a little bit different, right? It looks different, but this is still something that's passed down for generation to
Absolutely.
generation. Jasmine, what are your thoughts on that in terms of just colorism and how racism has affected us, and kind of like how your mom said, us being catty as women? What are
No,
your thoughts?
sure. Yeah, like back to what my mom was saying, we were having a conversation the other day about like television and film, social media, and like what the Black community is portraying as trendy for our society. And like what you're saying, a lot of that is what people see on TV, like from the celebrities that they may look up to. So I think that it's finding that inner confidence and inner beauty, that if I had nothing, if I didn't have a car that social media thinks makes me feel like, not me, I'm just speaking in, in general, like, okay, this artist is making me feel like I have to post next to an expensive car to be relevant. I have to post my new Chanel bag and me first class to be relevant. I think that your relevance starts from within, and it starts from your purpose. And I think that that's what Black culture is. We are where we came from, how we're rooted, and how far we've come. The journey, just alone, whether there's so many Black people all over the world, but we all kind of have something in common. That's
Mm-hmm.
the point. So that rooted, unity and message that we can do anything if we stick together
Mm-hmm.
is what people need to remember. Not
And
social media and that's temporary. You know what I'm saying? So I think that changing the message and the outlook on like what a strong Black person is, what a successful Black person is, and that within itself will, I feel like, will be a huge change for what we can do for each other.
Mhm.
I
Absolutely.
agree 100%. I think it is reinforced by the things that we see. And so, if, naturally this underlying thing is not being good enough, I think culturally, if we go back to generational things passed down, is like you stated, the what do you have? The external gratification, where worth is being based on what you have. And it was Kanye West, blaming on my pigment, in terms of how we spend money. Because at some point, if you come from a generation of not having anything, there is I mean, we're human. I know when I
Yeah.
buy new clothes, I like it. We're not saying not be human, right?
No, absolutely.
I think the concern or the issue, the challenge is when our worth is dependent upon all
Yes.
of the external factors to make us feel good, because the low self-esteem is so deep rooted. So now we're looking for external factors, the approval of men, the approval of other women, the having to, now I don't feel secure, so I need to one up you. I need to make you look bad. I'm going to be, instead of supporting you as my fellow sister, instead of encouraging you, somehow your success means my failure. And now I'm operating from a place of insecurity, which doesn't work. So it just reinforces the fact of not being good enough, because it usually backfires. So yeah, good, very good point. Social media, all of that is definitely reinforced. And I think we need more positive images of people coming together,
Definitely.
working together, educating one another, and platforms like we're doing today and now on that. And from a psychological, when we talk about therapy, I think it's important for people to peel back those layers. If there is some jealousy, if you are feeling insecure, if there is something that's going on in your relationships, friendships, toxic relationships, to really peel back those layers and see where it comes from. But I'm really hoping people who are watching this and hearing what we're saying is understand that this is real deep. This is
Definitely.
real deep, right? This is not just you get over it yourself. This is real deep in understanding how these hurts. There are positive things like education that have been passed down for generation to generation to generation. And there's also things such as anxieties, in unhealthy interactions, communication. We don't communicate, going to church for everything, which is perfect. I believe, in the Lord and everything.
Yes.
But when it being very dismissive of the emotional wounds that continue to manifest as unhealthy behaviors and things. I think all of us can reflect in our families, because it looks like substance abuse. Everybody has the aunt uncle that was screaming at each other at the family reunion or something, right? Substance abuse, someone who's always talked about because they bring a different boyfriend or girlfriend around all the time, and we talk about them. We're negative. That's how we deal with it. And then that brings another point of tearing each other down
Yeah.
in our own families, quick to tell you about yourself, right? And really, now I'd love to hear you all's comments on that. I can even think in my family, like they're like, you got some thick skin if you could deal with, because they what to tell you about yourself. But it's the thing we do amongst each other in our families is humor, not knowing the one where it comes from, the impact. Oh, so you think you're better than everybody because you got the degree, huh? So you think you're
Mhm.
um,
But but there is truth in humor. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
I that does not feel good when we have all experienced that in our families, right? When somebody says something like that to you, and it's again, that has to be unlearned. But it's not that you've done something wrong. You know what I mean? It's that they are insecure with who you are, or with your accomplishments, or with your success, or just with your security, just overall, just you're secure with who you are. And I think that that was just one thing for me as a mother to really impress upon Jasmine, and to really, you know, um, raise her in a way that she was to really highlight exposure. She was exposed to whatever I could expose her to, all cultures, ethnicities, but also to be kind, to be kind. And like, even there are times even now where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a little bit too nice, or maybe I'm too trustworthy, or maybe I'm too open, even though I'm a very private person. I'm still very, like, if I don't know you, I will do what I can to make you feel warm and accepted. But
mhm,
that's something that I can't change, because that's just inherent in who I am. And
mhm,
I've raised Jasmine to be the same way. But
mhm,
unfortunately, there's just, I do feel that it is prevalent amongst, our community, that you just don't see that, and it's not all the time. Like, you know what I mean, Jazz?
No, for sure. I think that, you know, my mom definitely taught me that, no, like, we're all different. No one is the same. And
Mhm.
had not, like, meaning, like, whether you're, from any culture, we're all the same. And, the kindness and things, she definitely also instilled in me too. But there were so many times where I would come home from school and I would be discouraged. I didn't understand why I felt different. I went to predominantly white schools my entire life. And I always felt like I had to be cool because, like, the cool girls couldn't relate to me. That's just how I felt. And then now looking back at it, there was a lot of racial reasons for that.
Mhm.
Um, I was treated completely different. Like, I totally remember it, but because of the kindness that she instilled in me and because of the confidence that I had in myself to just do me, like, I was just independent. I was a tomboy my whole life. So even if the girls were being mean to me, I would go and play basketball and, with the boys. And, it was just, I was never me having to feel like I'm not worth anything because they're making me feel that way, which is going back to, it starts in the home. You have to teach your kids and you have to teach, the little ones, that you don't really need justification from anybody else.
Mhm.
You have to be happy in the skin that you're in. Like, and
Ex-
for me, it was a lot about my hair. I have huge curly hair. My hair literally passes the screen, everybody. And I would always come home and I'd be like, Mom, my hair's not like everyone else's. Like, I don't like, I want it straight. Like, everyone's hair is straight. And I would be so insecure about it because no one else had hair like me. And then I started to understand, like, well, this is what makes me Jasmine.
Mhm.
Just because and I think a lot of those type of conversations need to happen too, because I think a lot of what is going on with, us tearing each other down in our own culture is because they're not as secure and, or just don't know themselves, not necessarily secure, but knowing who am I?
Yeah,
You
I
know
agree
what I'm
with
saying?
you. I agree with you, and I'd add to that. It's the insecurity, but I think also people don't know what they don't know, and there are some things that are just
Right.
passed down and comments that are made, and so you just do it not knowing that it's on a deeper level. And my experience as well, my first time with school, I grew up in a family. My mom and dad, I'm so thankful for having both of them because they really sheltered me from a lot of things that I remember them saying I'm not allowed to go around the corner with my bike, and I got in trouble real bad one time for doing it and not listening. But it wasn't until getting older that I understood
Mhm.
why they were driving the bike in the neighborhood. But even with other people, it wasn't until I changed schools when I was in high school. I went to a predominantly Black magnet school to go into a predominantly white public school. And I remember sitting behind, and it was a public school. So I was experiencing something I never experienced, being in kind of more of a magnet program. And I was sitting behind this white boy, and he turned around and he says, yeah, all Black people are on welfare. And I was like, what? Like that was his understanding of it. That was his
Right.
it wasn't like meant, it was just kind of like, yeah, so all your people on welfare. And when we think about what's passed down for us, but what's passed down for them. And in my head, I'm thinking, first of all,
Mhm.
I'm really sheltered because I have no idea what you're talking about. We weren't like super rich, but my parents made sure that I felt full and I got everything I needed no matter what. So I didn't know what he was talking about in terms of that. But you're right, it does start in the home. And I say
Mhm.
that not to badmouth anybody because I think those things,
Right.
I don't think we're taught to give compliments. Like, yeah, you look pretty and all of that, but a lot of our compliments in our community is like, oh, you think you look cute with your hairstyle, huh?
Mm.
Right? It's like, do I feel good about this? Is that a compliment? Okay, kind of, sort of. Okay, yeah. So
Right.
just being mindful of how we're talking within our family. And we know it is humor, we know it's no harm, but it slowly is like a slow leak, slowly starts to
Mhm.
chip away. And then when you come in other communities or encounter other people and you have racial things happen, it can really make big breaks into something that's already slowly chipping away. Last thing, because I know we're with time, I want to talk about a little bit about discrimination against Black women in the workplace.
Mhm.
And what that looks like when it comes to being professional, what it looks like, how that racial trauma and experiences impacts your anxiety when you go in, those type things. I'm just curious as to you all's experiences with being a Black woman in pursuing different careers.
Mhm. I mean, I would say that for me, it's kind of like it applies to every sector of our lives. You know what I mean? It's not just in the workplace. Like you always have those, those kind of like like your sensors up because you're like, okay, I don't know how they're going to accept me, or I don't know how I'm going to be viewed, or so for me it's like I've had to over
Mm,
produce. Like, so if I'm going to a board meeting, it's like I have to be over, you know what I mean, like it's like you have to over
Be
talk and
extra.
like over produce and like over this and that, just so that they can say, oh, she's able to kind of like come to the table with, you know what I mean, with the same, you know I guess education that I have too. So I feel like for me, um that's been something that I can relate to, but it's also just in every aspect. It's like when you go outside, it's like, okay, like when I go to my son's school, I have a small child, he's 9 years old, but it's like I feel like parents are just kind of always looking at me like, oh, well, she's Black, well, like, what does she do, is she, you know what I mean, and it's like you still have to like overcompensate
mm.
for just that acceptance, right, Jay?
Yes, definitely. Piggybacking off of that, there was multiple times when I was, growing up. I'm still growing, but when I was younger, where she would come home and this is going back to what my mom's saying about being open. Like she would come home and she would share these experiences with me that she's had at work because of the color of her skin and because that she's a woman. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because so in that, those are the type of things that I feel like Black parents need to be more comfortable with instead of coming home with the anger and stress of it, closing the door and being like, I don't want to talk because I'm angry. Like, I think that that's one thing that she was able to do was come, have her release on her drive home, whether that's listening to like talk radio or like calling a friend, coming home, still expressing the seriousness of what was going on, and then me learning from that. I may have not genuinely understood what she was talking about when I was like, but once you
Mhm.
start to become more aware as an adult, all these things start to resonate. So I think that that's something that I'm experiencing during this time is looking back on all the years of me being taught something since I was a little girl, and then now seeing it all,
Mhm.
kind of unravel in like a face to face situation, in a very very bold situation. And then I feel like also when it comes to what I've experienced in work,
Mhm.
I'm a professional dancer. I've been the only African American girl on most of the teams that I've been on, in college and for the NBA. And it's just, I mean, I think when it comes to being in Oregon, that's where I went to college and danced for in the NBA. There's only 1% African American community in the entire state.
Mhm.
So I've learned, okay, there's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of experiences with other cultures other than predominantly Caucasian. And I think that that is where we deal with not only racism, but the lack of knowledge part, and being able to have more conversations like this in places like Oregon, all over the world that are only 1% Black people, and understanding how can we reach, what I'm saying, reach these places so that these, they can understand, and this is what that movement is doing, in my opinion.
Mhm.
People in Oregon are probably like, oh, well, we're going to have to, you know tell our kids what's going on. There's no hiding it from them. Same thing with the coronavirus. There's no hiding it. Those are conversations that you have to have with these young minds to develop a certain understanding. So
Mhm.
I think that that's kind of my experience in the workplace, is more of like a lack of knowledge and not understanding, like certain comments may have been offensive to me, and me having to tell my friends on my team, like, don't say that,
Mhm.
because it may not be around someone that is willing to tell you, hey, that's wrong.
Right,
You
right.
can reach someone that is just not going to say anything and may react in a negative way. That's not the right way to go about it. But
Mhm.
not everyone has that self control, and I think that that's what we need to work on, is being okay with giving knowledge and sharing experiences, and not, it shouldn't be an uncomfortable feeling for people to be like, hey, like, this is wrong because this, that, and the other.
And I mean,
I
maybe that's what's been missing, is that we've been afraid to speak upon those, circumstances where you kind of call somebody out, quote
For
unquote.
sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to add to that. I think maybe when it goes back to our communication and how we communicate, there are times where, like you say, you call someone out and you say, "Hey, it's okay," and then there are times where people go straight to getting angry,
Right.
right? That missing piece there, not knowing what's triggering us or feeling like responsible for putting you in your place because it's not going to happen again. I'm not going to be disrespected again. I'm not going to be looked over, and going
Mhm.
straight to a place of frustration and anger, which is very common, right?
Right.
So conversations, yes, but also recognizing what's happening for us internally when those comments are made, after you've told someone off, those type things. But I also want to go back to what you stated, which I think was so fundamental and so, fortunate that you have a mom who's explaining those things to you. And I hope that resonates with some other parents that are out there, because we grew up in a time, I know because I said so, right? That because I said so, which I get it. There are some things that you just have to do. And I will also say that, some things that worked at some point in our history, because I'm sure our grandparents, parents, because I said so was like, get in a car, we need to be safe because
Mhm.
maybe public. Whereas now it's not as helpful. So I think we have to grow with the times in terms of which things from our past and things that have been passed down are helpful and which ones are more hurtful now. And in this day and age, sitting and explaining to a child, mommy's upset or dad's upset because had some stressors at work. I'm going to go in the room, give me 10 minutes to collect myself. I'll be back out to talk to you all soon, instead of coming in, what you want, slam the door, those type things.
Mhm.
Because we're teaching our kids how to cope with frustration, right? They already are going to be viewed in the world as the angry black man, the angry black woman,
Mhm.
right? And so when we teach them appropriate ways of coping with frustration, then we give them a different reference point. So when they're frustrated on the job or they're frustrated in school, they'll handle that and they'll know what's going on for them and handle it in a more appropriate, or more healthy way that
Yeah.
won't get them in trouble.
Yeah.
Gosh, this time has flown by
Ah.
so quickly. We made so many great points. I so appreciate you all sharing just your personal experience, your view and your perception of things. I'm hoping this resonated with some of you at home. I know we hit a lot of topics in a different time, and I really just wanted to plant seeds for you all to ponder and for you all to think about when it comes to how is racial trauma impacting you? How is being Black? How does it influence your perception and how you feel from home all the way to the workplace? Thank you guys so much. Tell our viewers where they can find you.
Jay?
Oh, okay. I'm Jasmine, and you can find me at Jasnation, JASNATIONN on Instagram.
Yes, and I am Bianca Banks. You can find me at It's Bianca Banks, ITSBIANCABANKS on all social platforms, and at the MND Show.
Yeah, the MND Show.
Thank you so much for having us. We really, it's just been a great afternoon, truly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm loving thank you, Dash Radio, for putting on and Fight the Power, for putting on this event. Posted on Twitch. You guys, thank you so much. For those of you who are viewing and listening, please continue to watch. We have some great, great, great artists and entertainment coming up for you. And just remember, mental health is important, emotional health is important, and really reflect, do what you can. There are many ways to fight this cause. There are many ways to support Black Lives Matter. There are many ways to support this movement that is now global. Do you hear me? Global. This is amazing. Global. So do your part, use your gifts. You don't have to be like everyone else. Use your gift to influence change. Until next time, you guys, enjoy the rest of your evenings and enjoy the rest of our show here on Dash Radio, dedicated to Breonna Taylor.
Thank you.
Bye.